You're listening to That's Pretty Dark,
the podcast where we talk about all the entertainment that scared us as children
and still haunts us as adults. So grab your flashlight and join us as we take a frightfully nostalgic look over our shoulders.
And under our beds.
And in our closets.
And together, we'll realize, whoa, that's pretty dark.
So how about that climate change?
How about that climate change?
Fires on the West Coast.
As we trekked through 7 inches of
Ice
snow.
And snow record
South
levels
Alabama.
of snow.
Yeah, that was
just
wild.
Across the Gulf Coast and the Southeast.
I'm rarely at a loss for words, but I was standing in my front yard just totally and completely speechless.
I had so much to do that day. You know what I did? I just stood at the window and stared outside.
Yep,
I took a long ass walk.
Stared out the
heard
window.
a woman down the street that I've never seen before sitting on her porch screaming to the neighborhood, speaking in tongues in a language I've never heard, talking about how the world is ending and I best give myself to Jesus.
Wow.
And she was like, hey you, hey. And
you specifically, you in particular.
Because I was out walking in the snow, the only asshole out there taking a long walk. And I had to steer clear of that. But anyway, not the point. Yeah, you see Thomas's, whatever that's called, the
satellite?
Yeah.
The blanket of snow.
The satellite image of all the snow, the blankets of snow across the Gulf Coast. It was pretty cool.
Ridiculous. I've never seen anything like that in all my days. We've got lots of northern listeners too, and northern darklings are often telling us about how cold it is up there, and we're always, sympathizing but not empathizing. And for just a brief moment in time, we got to feel what you feel.
I mean, records. We broke 100-year-old record, and who even knows before that? Of recorded history, this was the most amount of snow. And I'm happy about it, but at the same time, I know why it snowed so much.
That's
and
the thing.
I'm not happy about that.
Yeah, I was talking to one of my best friends is a meteorologist. We talk about him a lot on the show, Mr. Thomas. And he and I were talking all week about, this is the coolest thing and the most terrible thing. It's so awesome. And I hate it. Just back and forth all week long.
I know. It's difficult. I'm torn, but the snow is all gone now. It's been pretty warm comparatively. Yeah. And things are getting back to, I would say, normal, but nothing feels normal right now.
Not for you.
Especially not on this podcast. That's Pretty Dark. My name is Christian.
My name is Kaylin.
And buddy, it has been a hell of a year so far. It's been a hell of a week. For anyone who hasn't listened to our New Year's campfire, I'm moving.
You are.
So most of my energy and efforts going to packing and moving and this episode script, which I'll probably be editing in my new house.
Wild.
Probably.
Yeah, it's going to be different. It's going to be the end of an era.
Last episode in this room, this wood-paneled room.
Oh my God. I'm not ready for that.
Isn't that sad?
It actually is. I need to take a picture. I didn't take one yet for our story.
Take our picture while we get
We're recording.
Into this.
We don't normally do that.
I love that you chose the Courage purple for your room because...
We got to take heart. We got to have courage.
Because there are potions that we're going to be discussing this evening that typically throughout pop culture have almost always been depicted as purple, and that's for a very good reason.
Up until the Page Master got a hold of it,
All the way up to the Page Master. Tonight, we are jumping back into Are You Afraid of the Dark with the 6th episode of Season 2, The Tale of the Dark Dragon, which aired on July 24th, 1993, and according to IMDb, is about a teenager who was injured in a car crash, who buys a potion from a magic shop to become more popular. But if I were to expound on that, my summary would go a little something like this.
Oh, you wrote one.
When Keith winds up in a leg brace after a car accident, he develops an inferiority complex over having what he considers a physical deformity, leading him to purchase a popularity potion from a magic shop. A potion that comes with ironic yet severe side effects that can only be subdued by defeating the dark dragon within. It's a metaphor, y'all.
Oh, we all know what it's like battling with our dark dragons.
Every day, every night. Like, what's his name battling the angel in the dark?
What's his name?
What was his name? Laughing at me. You don't know either.
No, it just made me laugh the way you said it.
Bible baseball. Who wrestled an angel till dawn?
And I mean, I could have told you.
Whose hip was touched in just the right place to make him just come loose?
I'm looking it up because now I need to know. Jacob.
Israel.
Jacob.
Israel.
It was Jacob.
Jacob.
Bible baseball. That's a throwback.
Well, this wonderful episode was written by Allison Leah Benjamin and DJ McHale. It was also directed by DJ. And I think it's Benjamin. It could be Bingman, but I'm pretty sure it's Binge.
I read it as Binge, but how often am I right about these things?
Never.
Rarely.
You're never right. I'm always right.
Oh, how long have you been waiting to say that?
Also not Benjamin either. Binge.
No, and
man.
You might say that.
Like a man who sits down and binges Are You Afraid of the Dark?
A binge man. Mm-hmm.
And Allison Benjamin, she's a writer and producer, having written for 27 different TV series, including RoboCop, The Outer Limits, Flash Gordon, and CSI Miami. And she also wrote the Whispering Walls episode, which is coming up soon in this season.
Mm-hmm. I've already started my research, in fact.
And Vampire Town in season 6.
What a time.
Well, everyone, it's Gary's birthday.
Happy birthday, Gary.
Happy birthday, Gary Pear.
It did make me really happy. I literally said to my TV, happy birthday, Gary. I was like, happy birthday. Yeah.
Well, he arrives for his surprise party reveal in the clearing where he steps on a balloon, popping it.
Very funny, guys.
Surprise! I can't believe you remembered. Look, how could we forget?
You only reminded us a zillion times.
He did not. We'd never forget your birthday.
I'd love to have a birthday around that campfire, wouldn't you?
God, can that be my next birthday?
What I wouldn't give.
IMDb trivia claims that this is the only time we see a Midnight Society member celebrating a birthday on the show. But in The Tale of the Lonely Ghost from season 1, David gives Kristen a locket for her birthday.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's a fluke or what.
Maybe they weren't celebrating Kristen's birthday.
I couldn't remember if it was a secret thing, but he got her a gift because he knew, but nobody else
Her birthday
did.
Was coming up, or
Something
she just
like
had
that.
it. Yeah.
So
I still think it counts. Good call, though. Good call in remembering that.
I think it does. And if we do remember, The Tale of the Lonely Ghost was David's story.
Mm-hmm.
And because David is such a thoughtful guy, he's also giving Gary a birthday gift in the form of another story featuring a character of Gary's own creation.
What better birthday gift for Gary?
And now that we're all gathered around the fire, David begins.
My story is indeed about magic. The kind Gary likes. The kind that dazzles and amazes, but is still strangely real. But the magic in my story is more intense than the kind that comes from incantations or elixirs. It's the kind of magic that comes from inside of us. A magic that can be used for good or incredible evil.
I like how all of the Midnight Society tales and intros kind of wind their way into that point or that conclusion. Like, it's all about the people, and our episodes do the same thing.
It always brings it back down
pretty
to
much
like
every time.
The human level, like the human element.
Yeah, and just
behind
boil
everything.
it down to that.
Which, that's what horror is all about, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society. I call this story The Tale of the Dark Dragon.
The Tale of the Dark Dragon.
Dark Dragon.
And we open on the school library. First shot right out the gate. High school library assistant Mariah is returning a book to its shelf. What book is
Christian?
that, Kaylin?
What book? What book?
None other than The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson.
Ding, ding, ding.
So look at this copy I bought recently for myself.
Wow.
Look at all those dope round bottom flasks.
That's pretty cool.
And also, I've been so excited to show you this as well. Look at this glass I have.
Hey.
This, can you see this? The same
Yeah,
flask?
it's got a beaker. The same sort of flask.
You can't really tell because this is a glass. Then it's all see-through.
There's a lot of glare.
There is Robert Louis Stevenson's signature on it.
Whoa.
The first couple paragraphs of Jekyll and Hyde, as well as basically what would be a glass cutting of like the title page of The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde right here.
Nice.
And it's from
That's very cool.
company called Well Told designs or whatever, and they do a bunch of different glassware things like this. It's awesome.
From literary inspiration,
They do this. They do maps. They do all kinds of different stuff. This is not a paid promotion. I really wish it was. I'm gonna reach out to them now.
You're just a big fan.
I'm a huge fan, especially of this glass. I have this one, and I have a Christmas Carol.
That is an
glass
appropriate
as well.
vessel for this episode.
Sure is. Couldn't wait to drink it while recording this episode. But we've talked about Stevenson before a good bit.
Yeah, I talked about him a lot in our Final Wish episode, another Are You Afraid of the Dark
just
episode. It just
recently.
led me to him, and once I started reading about him, I couldn't stop. So there's a ton of background there as well.
Oh yeah, totally. And of course, Page Master, which featured Jekyll and Hyde, as well as, characters like Long John Silver from
Treasure Island.
I'm literally about to say Treasure Planet from Treasure Island, right?
Not Treasure Planet. Not to be confused with.
Not to be confused with Treasure Planet. But another library, though.
Another library. And I wondered if it was the same library from the Final Wish, Are You Afraid of the Dark episode? Like if they shot in the same library.
Well, I was going to say another library like Page Master. So
library like Page
all
Master.
these have libraries featured.
Libraries are important.
Very, very important.
Support your local library, kids.
Do it.
Especially right now.
And of course, we're going to get to more of Stevenson and the writing of this novella. Because, yes, just as The Twisted Claw was a children's programming rendition of The Monkey's Paw, so was this episode a version of Stevenson's novella, only with a few key alterations. But I have to point out, with this book right here in our faces, maybe DJ took a page out of Spielberg's book with like Gremlins,
Yeah.
If you want those in the audience who get it to really, really get it, just plant an Easter egg and just show them your inspiration right there off the bat.
I like it. I think it's fun.
I think it's fun too. More of that folding the world in on itself.
Yeah, life imitating art, imitating life.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly.
I like the cyclical nature of it.
And when Mariah returns to the desk, we meet her friend Keith.
Hi.
Hi. Got something for you.
Who gives her a very sweet gift of chocolate-covered blueberries.
Chocolate-covered blueberries? Where'd you get these?
My dad got them. I know you like them, so I pinched a couple.
You're the best.
So thoughtful.
And we get the idea that they're dating until we learn more about their relationship dynamic.
Yeah.
The truth is, Mariah is in teenage love with Keith, while Keith pines longingly after someone else, Shelley. But Shelley is in a relationship with Gary, but Shelley and Gary are in a fight because she thinks Gary takes her for granted. Can somebody say drama?
Mariah's on Keith's hook, but Keith is the hooks just keep hooking down the line.
She likes him.
She does like him. And if I'm being entirely honest with you, Christian, and our Darkling friends here tonight, I don't exactly understand why. The thoughtful gesture is one thing. And
Because
immediately off the bat, I was like, amazing. Great job, dude. You're
It's
killing
who
it.
he is before
And
he
then-
gets caught up in the bullshit.
I guess that's it. Yeah.
He's a sweet guy. He's getting
He's a
mixed
sweet
up.
guy deep down.
He's getting mixed up.
He's just mixed up in the wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. His self-loathing is affecting him too much.
Well, who among us doesn't understand that from time to time?
Exactly, which is why this, episode is so relatable. And we learn all this about these characters after Gary and his buddies' game of hacky sack bring them serendipitously into the library so we can meet them for a little exposition. But I think Gary seems like an all right guy. I mean, especially since the first thing he does is say what's up to Keith, and then he respects Shelley's boundaries and leaves her alone.
Thank you.
And then he encourages Keith to join them in their hacky sack game when the ball goes his way.
He does.
Once he sees that Keith is wearing a metal leg brace and cannot in fact play hacky sack, Gary apologizes, saying that it was rude of him to momentarily forget about Keith's leg. And I say it's not rude, it's just a human error, and you made up for it very quickly.
It happens, and you handled it well, and you apologized. The only thing that Gary did that irked me was that he was kind of handsy with the girls, like telling her not to leave the diner. At one point, he grabbed onto her.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, keep your hands to yourself. But other than that,
I mean, sure, he's not perfect.
Here's the thing: why is it that David, on Gary's birthday, gives the antagonist, not really antagonist, the name Gary? Is it just to be funny? Like,
I read that it was meant to be.
Are we poking fun?
Part of the gift for Gary, that a character was named after him.
Was named after Gary.
And I guess if you're going to
pick... That's a generous interpretation. We can interpret it that way.
If you're going to pick between the two guys in the story, you wouldn't want to name Keith's character Gary.
The lead character.
That kind of, I mean...
That would get confusing.
It would get confusing, but it would also kind of be like saying too much about what he thinks of Gary. I don't know.
So he just needs to be like a character on the fringes, an ancillary character. Isn't that funny? Like when you're creating a story or making up a story or whatever, you can very either intentionally or unintentionally say a whole lot about how you feel about certain people. Just in a name. What's in a name?
What's in a name? Yeah, we never have to be careful about what we say on the podcast when we talk about people that we know. Never. So, Gary's a good dude. Mariah's a good dude. Mm-hmm. Keith is dumb, but ultimately an okay dude.
Yeah.
Shelley kind of sucks.
A little bit.
I think she's shallow, personally.
We're supposed to think that.
I think she's shallow Shelley. Shelling shallow shells by the shallow. Shallow. I almost had it.
It took me a second to realize you didn't.
Shelling shallow shells by the shallow.
I'll take it. I'll accept it. You get a B+. Can
I get a shell badge?
In poetry class.
Well, all in this same moment, we learn that there's soon to be a homecoming dance.
So you going to the dance Friday?
No. I'm not much of a dance guy. I'm more of a sit and watch guy.
And David's narration explains that Keith Saunders was in a bad car crash. It messed up his leg so bad that he would never walk without a limp. But the accident didn't just damage his leg, it hurt his entire outlook on life.
And that's real, but that's also pretty dark.
Pretty real, pretty dark. In leaving the library, when Keith literally runs into Shelley, he lets her know that he would happily take her to the dance if she and Gary don't patch things up, which understandably hurts Mariah's feelings.
Yeah, I'm hurting for Mariah in that moment.
Me too.
Badly.
And like,
that sucks to hear. Like, no, I'm not going to go with you. And then to turn around in the next breath.
Yeah,
like,
I'm not going to go.
The very next moment.
Very pretty girl.
In front of Mariah.
Yeah, she's within earshot.
And offer his services, whatever she needs. I'll accompany you. I'll be there. I'll do it. Feels shitty.
But like for me, it's about this time that I went, wait, what? Like he's dating Mariah. Why would he flirt with this other what's he doing right in front of her?
Yeah. Kind of confusing.
It was a little bit confusing, but intentional. And I think DJ's just good like that. Mm-hmm. Because we're supposed to like them together.
Oh, yeah.
A lot.
That's supposed to be the immediate impression. Right. We are supposed to like that.
Before we ever realize they aren't actually together. Mm-hmm. And that way we are primed and ready to be appalled by the events of the story for deeper, more emotional reasons than just the obvious horrors that befall these teens. But before we get too far into tonight's tale, let's meet the actors. Keith was played by Chuck Campbell, who also played Chuck the Technician in 45 episodes of Stargate Atlantis.
Wow.
He was Owen in Superstar, and he was in Jason X, played the character. I cannot remember how to pronounce his name. It's a nickname, but he's the nerd who's in love with the robot character.
Works for me.
Mariah is played by Kara Pifko. She voiced Josephine Praline in 33 episodes of Angela Anaconda.
Oh my God. As soon as you said Josephine Praline, I was like, Angela Anaconda.
We don't talk about that show enough.
No, we don't. It's deeply, deeply buried in my psyche, but it's in there.
It's so strange and upsetting. Wow. But I watched it often.
And that's why we're here.
She played Alice DeRay in 39 episodes of This Is Wonderland. She voiced Eunice Earwig in 11 episodes of Miss Spider's Sunny Patch Friends. She played Louise Addison in 11 episodes of General Hospital, Leslie in Ready Player One, and Paige Novick in 16 episodes of Better Call Saul.
She's doing okay for herself.
She also voiced characters in a number of video games and different franchises, including Final Fantasy, God of War, and Mass Effect. And she voices numerous characters in Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars The Bad Batch. So yeah, she's done really well.
Mm-hmm.
Gary is played by Sean Hayes. And this is the first of his 3 acting credits, followed by something called Dancing on the Moon in 1997 and a TV movie called The Tracker in 2001. And Shelley Bergman is played by Eleanor Noble. She did a ton of TV and voice acting for animated series and video games, 18 episodes of The Mystery Files of Shelby Woo,
Hey.
21 episodes of Country Mouse and City Mouse Adventures, 49 episodes of Arthur,
Whoa.
and she also appeared in The Tale of the Time Trap in season 7. Guess how old she was playing this character?
Oh no, this is not a fun game.
Hey boys, guess how old she
I'm going to say 22.
Oh, 13.
What?
13.
No.
Yep.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my God. I really wanted it to go the other way.
I mean, it's not bad. I mean, I don't...
It's not bad, but that's just wild. That's
she's
so
just
young.
Playing like a high school senior, yeah.
Playing a high school... That's what I was about to say. They're like seniors.
Yeah.
And she's 13. My God.
She doesn't look it.
No. She looks very much a contemporary of the other actors, so impressive, I guess.
Well, after school, at the charcoal pit, which is the diner where all the kids hang out, Shelley quickly forgives Gary, which really bums Keith out.
Mm-hmm.
In flipping through his comic book, he comes across an advertisement that catches his eye. You can be confident. You can bring out the best in yourself. Have the courage to walk through the doors of Sardau's magic mansion for the potion. Now, luckily, despite this being an advertisement in a comic book, Sardau's magic shop is local. So local that Keith can walk there wearing a leg brace.
I interpreted that as it being magic.
Oh, yeah?
As if by magic, Sardau's ad appeared
Okay.
right when he needed it most, you know?
Okay.
Again, generous, but I like it.
I guess I'll take it. I think I would believe that more if Sardau's shop didn't... If he believed in the magic that he contained.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If he knew
Mm-hmm.
what he had.
But otherwise, it's kind of hapless, you know? Like,
Yeah, it's true.
just kind of shots in the dark, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I would believe it more if it were like local TV or a local paper. The comic book was... The comic book is a little... It requires a little more magical thinking to get us where we need to be.
Yeah. Fridge logic. Don't question it. But it is dark by the time that Keith arrives, and Sardau's shop is empty as usual. Empty, save for Sardau himself and his white rabbit, Harold. But did anybody else notice the super specs right there when Keith walks in?
Yes.
Yeah, front and
I had it
center.
written down.
I want a pair of super specs.
All you need is to just reflect a ring light into your glasses, and then suddenly you're wearing super specs.
Yeah, but I want like a pair of them, like on my shelf.
I bet we can find you some.
Merch, merchandise.
I understand what you mean. I bet we can procure some super specs.
We should make them and sell them in our shop.
I'm pretty sure we wouldn't be the first ones to do that.
If anybody wants to make super specs and sell them through our shop, hit us up.
How do these things work?
Merch store.
I'm just still not over the fact that he doesn't like Mariah. Like, he's not immediately smitten with Mariah.
I know.
But, I mean, it's just because she's wearing glasses. Speaking of super specs.
It's gotta be.
The glasses are the thing that make all early 2000s / late 90s girls.
Hold on to that. Hold on to that.
I'm raging already.
I know. We're not even like to her transformation. That's good energy. Save it.
I'll save it.
Harness it.
I have it.
Let it build.
That energy does not leave me.
Let it build.
Despite never having put glasses on a day in my life,
Yeah.
that energy does not leave me.
It sucks. It really sucks.
Is there a Mr. Sourdough here?
That's sourdough! No, mister. Accent on the dough.
Is there a Mr. Sourdough here?
Mr. Sourdough?
Sourdough.
What is this, 2020?
Of course, Sardau is just as useless and dim-witted as usual, pretending like he knows what potion Keith is talking about and lying through his teeth that it's his #1 bestseller. And this is the second time that we witness Sardau scamming teenagers out of their money.
$40?
$40?
All right, 35, but I'm losing on the deal.
Thanks just the same.
How much you got?
I think it's really funny that David is doing Sardau justice, leaning into his catchphrases, pumping him full of avarice, etc.
He has to. It's Gary's birthday.
It's Gary's birthday, and he's just as much a sleazy charlatan as Gary would have wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, totally unaware that he's harboring true, powerful magic in his trick shop of shits and giggles.
I would like to visit, please.
I want to go there.
Magic Mansion. Take me there.
Absolutely. That's one of the things I want to ask DJ. Like, what is the rise and fall of the magic shop? Like the curiosity magic shops, where'd they go?
Where did they go? Where are they?
Could one thrive today?
If anyone knows, it must be you, DJ.
But hey, somebody alert PETA.
Oh my god.
Because while Sardo's back is turned, Keith tries his magic potion on Harold, the white rabbit.
No animal testing.
No animal testing, Keith. Get it through your skull. Harold goes from looking pretty rough with matted, discolored hair to a fluffy, clean, healthy-looking bunny. And satisfied with his purchase, Keith leaves just in time to miss the rabbit's smoking transformation
into a gremlin
white
bunny.
Gremlin. Exactly. I remember watching that years ago with my sister and being like, they're totally inspired by gremlins.
It sure looks
making
like
that
it.
Rabbit a gremlin.
A gremlin bunny.
A grabbit.
A grabbit. A gremlin rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
A grunny? Less good? Okay.
A bimlin. I don't like any of these.
That's the winner. That's the winner.
A bimlin?
Yeah. It's a bimlin for sure.
Ugh.
Or, I mean, it could be a remlin if that's more your fancy.
Moving on.
1, 2, 3.
The next day after school, at home, Keith tries the potion for himself. And just that one drop of the stuff has him acting out his own version of the famed throat-clutching transformation from Dr. Jekyll to Mr. Hyde.
I will never, ever not see Pagemaster. Whether I'm
Right.
reading it in Jekyll and Hyde itself or not, that scene, the transformation scene in Pagemaster is the definitive Jekyll and Hyde transformation. Visually speaking.
The number of times this past week I've heard Mr. Hyde,
Mr.
just like
Hyde.
Yeah,
And
I've been
glug,
seeing that
glug,
face
glug,
in like the
glug,
shadows.
glug.
Yep,
Yeah,
it's good
he's
stuff.
everywhere.
It's good stuff.
He haunted me for over a decade. Good 15 years that I couldn't really look at it straight away. Like,
I love it.
had to look through my fingers. You
I've
know?
been meaning to watch it again. I just didn't have enough time.
It's a good one.
It's so good. And once the potion has taken its toll, Keith looks into his bedroom mirror to reveal not a hideous-looking Hyde-like visage.
No,
but-
now he's
but a
bad to the
handsome
bone.
Rebel makeover.
Danny Zuko, you.
That's some Patrick Swayze dirty dancing shit.
Oh, that's the Swayze.
That's some Kevin Bacon footloose shit.
That's the bacon.
That's some John Travolta grease shit.
Mr. Danny Zuko himself.
This
Ooh.
blends the 1950s with the 1980s. We got faded jeans. We got black leather boots and jacket. Perfectly styled hair.
I love how the potion not only like makes you look better, but it also gives you a whole new personality. It's not just like you, but better. It's like
gives
you,
you the
but
confidence, right?
a greaser. Yeah.
Yeah, it turns you into a greaser without the grease so much. But yeah, it's a confidence booster. It's well, what are people taking? What are all the?
It's liquid courage, you know.
Yeah, it is liquid courage. Yeah, it's a beta blocker.
Beta blocker.
It's, one of
Those
those
are
things
popular,
that people take now to not get so nervous. And this is not the first time we've encountered 50s nostalgia in Are You Afraid of the Dark? But I do love how in 1993, the idea of a cool rebel was still very 1980s, which of course was the 30-year cycle of the 50s. So that's why they're so similar.
I was just about to say that's right on time.
Yeah, it is. And it's just funny to me because the 90s hadn't quite reached the Kurt Cobain level of all denim, all flannel, all the time. So this is still just before that, with the previous decade bleeding over.
I maintain my like sociological understanding of the decades on the 5s. Those show far more changes than decades ending on the 10s.
Yeah.
Like 85 to 95, those look far more different than 80 to 90.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Because it takes time for the evolution.
It takes time for the culture. Yeah, exactly. It takes time for the culture to evolve, for the trends to evolve.
Absolutely.
And so in the 5s, you're kind of in the middle of the decade has figured itself out. And then by the time you get to the next 5, the next decade is
Oh, yeah, totally.
well on its way.
Yeah, just
doing
watch
so.
Friends. Just watch Friends and you'll see how the 80s become the 90s and it stays the 90s up through the 2000s.
I would say there's some early 2000s looks in there, but yeah, it is a solidly
Maybe
90s
they changed.
costumed show.
Maybe that's what decided the 2000s vibe. Is Friends.
Oh,
The,
I have
the
no doubt
costume
about
choices.
that.
Anyway,
I was
this
just
could be a
watching
whole side
That
tangent.
could
we
be a
could
whole
go down.
conversation. I was just watching a documentary that talked about how there's a scientific study about how Friends altered the patterns of speech.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yes, in that generation,
We
in
need
Gen
to
X.
save this for a bonus episode on Patreon.
I could go all day.
Catch us in a bar.
Ha.
We'll close that place down.
I would. I have.
Been a while since I've ever done that.
We have. It's been a while, but we have.
Used to.
It's been a long, long time. Galaxy far away.
Yes!
In leaving his house, with all his new confidence, his liquid courage, Keith hops over the railing to show off his healed leg.
Yep, we had to make a moment. We had to create a moment for that.
Yes.
Just so you know, he's very agile now and has no more leg brace to speak of.
Very agile.
Just so you can see it.
His
Real
stiff
good.
jeans don't hold him back.
They sure hold me back.
He hides the key under the loose board of his front stoop, and he struts away like it's goddamn Saturday Night Fever.
Or something from the 90s.
Whoa, who is that?
And Cool Keith goes to the charcoal pit, where he immediately introduces himself to Shelley as Keith's cousin, KC.
Like she's not going to recognize him.
No one does. It's Superman taking off the glasses.
Zooey Deschanel without bangs.
She is a different person without bangs. Now, I racked my brain for an explanation of what this name was in reference to, KC, because it's not Casey, the name Casey, it's KC, the initials.
Keith.
Well, I'll say, I thought through all the names from the novella and everything trying to figure out what it was, and I think it's nothing more complex than Keith's cousin.
Yeah.
KC.
Casey. I think you're right.
I'm KC. You know Keith Saunders?
Yeah?
He's my cousin.
You know, he's confident, but he's not too bright.
I don't even know if we could qualify him as confident in that
He didn't
moment.
even think it through at all of what he was going to call himself.
He did come up with it, though, to be fair. He had it. He was quick on his feet.
Sure.
He had a name. Didn't have to be a good name, but he had one.
He's light on his feet, hopping over rails, and he's quick on his feet, coming up with initials for fake names.
Casey.
K to the C. The next morning, Keith awakens back to his normal self. The leg brace is magically back in place. His hair is magically back to normal. The only thing out of place and not normal is the apparently painful discoloration of blotchy skin on his chest, which he looks at in the mirror and recoils in disgust at the sight of it.
I've seen enough rashes and hives for my lifetime.
And so it would appear that Sardo's potion comes with a few ironic side effects, much like the potion that inspired it, the one invented by the fictional Dr. Henry Jekyll. As TV Trope says,
The potion makes you stronger and makes you feel good, but has very unpleasant side effects and makes you dependent on it to stop the side effects. It can be lethal if you take too much at once, and refusing to confront the problems you try to use it as a quick fix for only makes them worse. Is this just alcohol?
hey, don't step on my part of my conclusion. Don't you dare do that.
Whoops.
No, that's a big thing. It's meant to be a lot of different things, but I'm glad to know I'm not the only one who's thought that way my entire life. But I think it's high time we get a little more context on the story that inspired this episode.
I think you're high. Correct. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Hey Darklings, Kaylin here. We know our generation has a surplus of pretty darkness in common, and if there's one thing unpacking our upbringing has taught us, it's just how essential therapy is for shining a flashlight on the darkness in our own lives. I don't know where I'd be without mine. I believe every human can benefit from the perspective of a licensed therapist. Whether you're familiar with your own inner workings or you're just looking for a listening ear, you can give BetterHelp online therapy a try by going to betterhelp.com/prettydark and receive 10% off your first month. I get that online therapy can be tricky, but I've been seeing my therapist online since 2020, and I'm here to tell you that it's absolutely worth it. Getting started is always the hardest part, and BetterHelp makes that easy. You can begin right from your phone or computer in whatever way makes you most comfortable, via good old-fashioned phone calls, video chats, or even messaging, if that's more your style. We enjoy this frightful nostalgia and learning about how it all connects, but Darklings know we're also passionate about healing and growing from what we learn. If you dare to do the same, head to betterhelp.com/prettydark. There you can answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who has years of experience helping people like us. Plus, you can switch therapists at any time, so you're sure to find the right connection. Millennials are ditching the stigma and owning our mental health. And with BetterHelp, you can build a relationship with a professional all from the comfort of your own home. just how we like it. Visit betterhelp.com/prettydark or choose That's Pretty Dark podcast during sign up and enjoy 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/prettydark.
Okay, I've been so excited.
I'm excited too.
To get into this.
Wait.
I feel like we've been trying to talk about Jekyll and Hyde for years now.
I wanted to talk about it so badly. We talked about it just a little bit with Page Master. I talked about Stevenson so much in Final Wish because I just couldn't stop. I wanted so badly to talk about Jekyll and Hyde, and it wasn't about Jekyll and Hyde. But this is about Jekyll and Hyde.
This episode is Jekyll and Hyde. Mm-hmm. Like, it's kind of a good thing we didn't get too far into it in the past.
I knew we'd have a chance.
Well, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is an 1886 novella written by Scottish author Robert Louis Stevenson. Mm-hmm. It's one of the defining stories of the Gothic horror genre, although many do argue that it belongs to the genre of science fiction.
I was going to say.
What with its reliance on certain medicinal ingredients as well as biological impossibilities. But I would personally argue that Jekyll's transformative potion is much more so the result of alchemical magic than some as-of-yet undiscovered scientific potentiality. Mm-hmm. But of course, if we know anything, it's that alchemy is kind of the origins, it's the grandfather of modern science and medicine, in a way.
Taylor Swift knows it.
Well, if she knows it, then
it's gotta be true.
But in this way, this story walks the same line as Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which is a staple of Gothic horror literature that single-handedly invented the science fiction genre. We know this.
Thank you, Mary Shelley.
A lot of Gothic horror after Frankenstein was surprisingly sci-fi based as well, but I think that that's mainly because medicine itself was pretty horrific in those days. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of medical advancements and therefore scientific advancements, but those usually came at a very messy, disturbing price. And still do.
Have you seen Poor Things? Poor Things, anyone?
Yes, I have seen Poor Things, and it was very good.
It was great.
Very, very good.
But has these vibes.
And so was the price of writing a story like Jekyll and Hyde. The accepted history of its writing consists of a few integral elements. For example, many of the story's horrifying scenes were conjured during Stevenson's own nightmares. Mm-hmm. He famously fussed at his wife one night for waking him from one of said nightmares, saying, "Why did you wake me? I was dreaming a fine bogey tale." The official account is that Stevenson was confined to his bed, recovering from a hemorrhage. Both his wife and son said that he was sick for the entire writing, but he would come downstairs to feverishly read them his work in progress. And once he'd finished with whatever section he'd brought down, he'd go right back upstairs to continue writing. He'd basically come down, read it in a fury, and then leave them with their jaws just on the floor like, what the hell is he doing?
What are you doing?
And then he would just be like, all right, back to it. And he'd go right back up.
This guy is a character.
Yes, he is a
was.
character.
I mean, everything
Have you ever
I
looked
read
at a
about
picture
him.
of him?
Yeah, because when I was researching
devil.
him, he was.
He's real handsome.
He was, I'm telling you. Couldn't stop reading about him for a reason. Damn.
Just the words about him were turning me on. I'm sweating right now. The first draft took him 3 days, and after his wife Fanny critiqued the work and gave him her feedback, he allegedly burned the manuscript,
I understand.
claiming he wanted to start over from scratch and not be tempted to salvage any of it.
I understand the impulse.
Her main contribution was pointing out that the story is an allegory and suggesting that he lean further into that. And that's exactly what he did.
She knew what she was talking about.
His rewrite took another 3 to 6 days, which some biographers believe was drug-fueled, using either cocaine or ergot, but I have no idea if that's pure speculation or not. I wouldn't be surprised necessarily, but if I remember, his wife and son just said that he was ill and nothing else.
A fever will do things to you.
That's the thing.
That's why they call it a fever dream.
That's the thing. I would say if he's feverish and he's having vivid nightmares and potentially even hallucinating, you don't need drugs at that point.
You don't need any more.
But he could have also been taking things
for said fever.
For this that could have, people just didn't know that much about medicine, clearly, in those days. So maybe he was mixing things he shouldn't have been mixing. You never really know. You never can tell. But for anyone who's never read the story, or if it's just been a while, the novella is told in the third person from the perspective of a lawyer named Gabriel John Utterson.
And remember, Stevenson studied law himself.
Yes.
So that's kind of a connection.
Putting himself in that character. And this man becomes first intrigued and then obsessed and horrified by the mysteriously strange circumstances surrounding the involvement of his good old friend, Dr. Henry Jekyll, with a most detestable, vile, and abhorrent villain named Mr. Edward Hyde.
Mr. Hyde!
And Mr. Utterson's suspicions begin when Jekyll has Utterson draw up his will, which leaves his entire estate and fortune to Mr. Hyde in the event of either his death or, and this is the kicker, his disappearance.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, once various characters begin to meet and or encounter Mr. Hyde throughout the story, Mr. Utterson's fears become increasingly more profound and justified, until the big reveal at the story's conclusion that Jekyll and Hyde are one and the same, by way of a potion that allows the good doctor to live a double life. In other words, he gets to live out his wildest fantasies in the form of Mr. Hyde, and then return back to his innocent personage whenever he wants. At least he can at first.
I've been thinking a lot about Jekyll and Hyde lately because Severance is back, in case you didn't know.
Oh, dude, it's so good.
We've got our second season of Severance after 3 years of waiting for it, which is mind-blowing that we waited that long.
It's all the strikes and stuff.
Oh, I know. It was the strikes. There were a lot of reasons, but yeah, it's back now. And so I find myself in all kinds of weird, like, mental contortions trying to imagine having an innie and an outie,
double,
and how do you manage that? But you can't because they don't know each other and they'll never know each other. Your innie and your outie will never communicate with each other. So the only way to know your innie is by speaking to your family who spoke to your innie when he broke out briefly.
Hey, no spoilers.
With the overtime It's just like, they've had 3 years on this.
The overtime contingency.
The overtime contingency. They've had 3 years on this. But like, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about that duality. Like, how could you be one person and another? I do understand the concept of compartmentalization, but I imagine it would be pretty wild to turn around and have, someone acting as you in your life that you're unaware of.
And that is a good point, but the difference here is that
he has a separate persona.
He effectively is a different person completely.
Who did it? Mr. Hyde. Yeah, exactly. This is a separation of identities.
And he does retain his memories. So he's not the actions of Hyde are not lost on Jekyll. He just
which is a different thing.
Yeah, he just doesn't care until he commits a murder, which
and
that's the point that he begins to try to not give in to his temptations, but he is incapable, as most people find it very difficult to just stop.
Once you start,
But yes, all very good thoughts, very interesting. I understand the duality aspect, but we're about to get into it, so we'll just continue.
Okay.
See, Dr. Jekyll is a man who does what they call good, to quote the book. He's an upstanding citizen of London who has spent his life focusing on education, aspirations, and having a good career, and being a relatively good person. Yet the events of the narrative take place because Jekyll has a midlife crisis. He begins to feel that he's wasted his life appeasing his own better nature, and nearing his sunset years, he looks around him and sees a predictable life of comfort and ease, but also one of overwhelming boredom and regret over not living a more exciting life.
We need the mystery.
Or as the devil might say, not living more deliciously.
Ooh.
So the entire premise of this story, as we keep saying, relies upon the concept of the duality of man, which is the philosophical belief that all humans have both good and evil inside of them. And this is a concept that Robert Louis Stevenson popularized and mass-produced for public consumption.
Yeah.
Although he took the philosophical and the metaphysical and made it a very literal internal struggle between good and evil. He said the quiet thing out loud, that humans are complicated, emotionally complex animals, that no matter how well you think you know someone, you don't, and that even the most celebrated and upstanding members of society can still have some of the most forbidden desires and darkest secrets.
I was just going to say darkest secrets, yeah.
So when I say I understand the duality of man aspect, I just know...
You got some evil lurking.
Depends on what you define as evil. Grew up religious.
As did I.
Grew up very repressed in a lot of ways.
As did I.
Yeah, this is not unfamiliar to us. So I understand. I still have the struggle between what I consider good and evil. Without the religious element, without the fear of hell, not necessarily hell.
You have your own definitions, not
because
the definitions given to you by a system.
Right. I mean, but also because it affected my identity, my sense of self, and it warped my concepts of morality.
Yeah.
Because there were things that I was told were morally wrong that are not morally wrong.
Yes.
In reality.
Yes.
So I'm still working through that on a personal level. So there are lots of things that I do with my life that, if I'm honest with myself, I feel the guilt. It's typically in the wee hours of the morning or something.
Sure.
I'm up too late and it's dark and quiet and I'm alone. And I start thinking too much. I do scare myself back into those old thoughts, those old habits. And I begin to think that I'm doing bad things sometimes. Something as simple as drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
Or, using bad language. Sometimes I go, I say the word whoa, when did that happen? It just scares me sometimes.
It's very interesting to live a life where we were told so many things for so many years and to then, yes, be living differently than, maybe we were told that we needed to. And then looking around and going, I'm a different person. Like this is a different expression of humanity that I am capable of and doing right now. Right. Not bad, not wrong, just very, very different. And it can be really hard to shed those like previous deeply held convictions that we thought were kind of life or death, finding that they're not exactly life or death. People are entitled to their
Eternal
opinions
damnation
on these things, but like a rigid morality of something like the word or alcohol, that's a little less clear and harder to do. Most of the reason why we were told things like that were morally wrong was for a degree of control.
Sure.
And when you really start looking at I could get into some spaces here that I'm not sure I want to go into.
Yeah, I mean, when you control and limit what people can say and do, even in private.
When you start controlling people's private thoughts and all of their actions, it can get really muddy really quickly because then for whom is the control?
Exactly.
Like, and who is it serving, really? Yes. And you have to start looking at those things if you are subscribing to any kind of belief system that's altering your behavior.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is good shit. This is everything that I wanted to talk about. This is all the same themes and everything. So keep this energy. You just keep bringing that shit.
All right. I got it. These are things that I think about for sure.
Let's just all keep in mind that there are people who do things that are objectively wrong.
Sure.
And they have no sense of morality or like ethics at all. They don't care.
And we call those people psychopaths.
Yeah, we do. It's a very interesting dynamic to have religion as kind of a driving force in your life or something that has like propelled you. A lot of people who come from that world kind of look at the rest of the world and they go, well, if you don't have that guiding your morals, how could you possibly have morals? Because in those systems, those structures, you're taught that you are sinful. Everything about you is wrong. Everything about you is depraved. And so you're looking from the inside out in those systems going, well, everybody else is depraved and they don't have my system to save them or fix them. And then if you kind of take a peek on the outside, you realize, well, not necessarily. Yeah.
And in fact, as I started to do this in my life, I recognized that a lot of people that I know that were not raised in those systems or did not have that or who did not have that force in their life were capable of, I think, had capacity for a lot more empathy and compassion and just genuine like human and humanity, love for humanity. I think that inadvertently maybe, and maybe overtly in some cases, a lot of religious systems teach us to hate humanity so much with the goal of demonizing ourself and what makes us human. Yeah. Even though most of the rhetoric is to love your neighbor, to love others. You hate humanity so much in yourself that a lot of people struggle to love it in other people because of that exact like root.
Right. Because to love someone else, you first have to love yourself. And if your whole dogma is hating yourself to the point that you deny yourself.
Right. Which is why I think a lot of people think that they are loving. They think that they are loving as much as they can. That's where I try to have a lot of compassion with it, because I do think that a lot of people are loving as much as they possibly can, as much as they have capacity to.
But it's so suppressed by
because
their own
it is
self-hatred.
suppressed and repressed by exactly.
So why can't
the self-hatred
Keith
that is
love
taught
Mariah?
and deeply internalized?
Why can't Keith see Mariah for who she is? Because he hates himself.
Because she's wearing
so
glasses.
No.
But I know that a lot of this goes very deep, not only for us, but for Robert Louis Stevenson, which is why I felt so connected in talking about him during Final Wish to begin with.
Absolutely.
And I've wanted to know more about how he brought that to Jekyll and Hyde.
Oh, well, I'm about to tell you.
Tell me.
When it comes to possible, if not probable, inspirations for this novella, Stevenson had no shortage. To begin with, he had a number of close friends who were gay. Who were forced to lead double lives because it was still illegal in the UK at the time to be homosexual, including a one Reverend Walter Jekyll, who eventually renounced his faith and moved to Jamaica to live a life of music and gardening alongside his lifelong male companion. And I say good for him.
Yeah.
He got out.
Hear, hear.
But Stevenson had another close friend who turns out was not only a French teacher living in Edinburgh, but was also a convicted murderer and quite possibly an actual serial killer. The man's name was Eugene Chantrell.
Hyde.
Eugene Hyde Chantrell. And his MO was poisoning people with opium, including his wife, which was the murder he was caught for.
Yeah. You get a little too close to home on that, you're screwed.
Hard to get away from that, yeah.
Yeah.
Stevenson was present for this entire trial, which led to the man's execution, and it was eventually revealed that Chantrell was also suspected of murdering a number of other people at dinner parties across Europe by way of a favored dish of toasted cheese laced with copious amounts of opium.
Watch what you're cheesing.
A rare bit fiend? Anyone? I have friends who host dinner parties. I love a good dinner party. They're delightful. I love to be invited. And I always have a wonderful time.
Have you ever been served toasted cheese?
No, I
Blink
haven't.
Twice. Blink twice if you were suspicious of the toasted cheese. There's no blinking. Okay, just checking.
So I can imagine how deeply it would affect me to find out that one of those friends had a habit of poisoning people at other dinner parties they were invited to by other people.
And now you're putting yourself into the shoes of Mr. Stevenson, I guess.
Yeah.
Because he must have attended these parties.
He definitely, he went to, yes, he had dinner parties with Chantrell at like Chantrell's house with him and his wife, who he ended up murdering.
Right.
So yeah, very close to home for him. So yeah, I could see that would have a lasting effect.
So far, we've got Stevenson looking at people in his life that he knows that are kind of compartmentalizing, you could say, living double lives.
Sure.
Some for the purposes
because
of
they're forced
love, because they're forced to by society, right?
Right. Yes.
In one such case that you've told us is he's living a double life for love and passion and joy. And in another case, he is living a double life for the exact opposite.
For the
hatred,
sake of blood,
bloodlust,
hatred,
murderous intention. So
Precisely.
he has these very close, he has these very close brushes with people who are not who they appear to be.
Right.
Which is fascinating to any writer, because then you start to think inside the mind of those people.
Oh, yeah.
And wonder how and why that's happening.
That's just fuel for that fire burning inside of him. And just like you're saying, it was Chantrell's double life, his apparent genteelness mixed with his secret desire for murder, that is quite possibly Stevenson's greatest inspiration for the characters of Jekyll and Hyde. Or at least the final nail in the coffin that would become the novella. Because there was another Scotsman living in Edinburgh in the 18th century named William Brodie, who was, to quote Wikipedia, a Scottish cabinet maker, deacon of a trades guild, and Edinburgh city councillor, who maintained a secret life as a burglar, partly for the thrill and partly to fund his gambling. And Stevenson actually wrote the script for a play about Brodie while he was still a teenager.
Wow.
So clearly this concept of the duality of man was a
always,
lifelong obsession for him.
Always.
And this was further advanced in his story Markheim, which he wrote and published in 1884, just a few years before writing Jekyll and Hyde, about the man, Markheim, who enters an antique store on Christmas Eve and murders the shady dealer who owns it. And then a spirit, probably the devil, shows up before Markheim can loot the place, and the two have a nice, long Christmas evening chat about good versus evil. And ironically enough, it's actually the devil who ends up convincing Markheim not to murder the shopkeeper's maidservant and rob the place. It's all very Jekyll and Hyde meets A Christmas Carol. But the main takeaway is the moral dilemma Markheim experiences at the heart of the story. Now, this episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark Dragon, also relies on the concept of the duality of man, but in a very different way, as TV Tropes puts it.
The story resembles a high school teen version of The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. However, rather than unleash a malignant alter ego, the potion enhances confidence, refines personal appearance, and seems to heal, at least temporarily, bodily impairment such as Keith's limp and Mariah's poor vision. In between dosage, however, it manifests as a bestial body mutation, the taker's sense of self-abasement.
Sardau's potion is about becoming a better version of yourself, so that you deserve your heart's desires, such as being popular, being cool, dating your crush, etc. It's about being or feeling good enough, which is something that I've always struggled with personally.
Me too.
So I do a big relate. I understand hating myself for my own imperfections and wishing I was better at things. It's kind of the story of my life. It's kind of made me who I am as a person. It's why I am the way that I am. If any of you were ever wondering how I got this way.
What kind of person are you? How did you become it?
Therefore, I found the so-called side effects of Sardau's potion particularly interesting, if not harrowing. And I say so-called because they're not so much side effects as they are the particular symptoms of a very specific type of withdrawal, which makes this episode perfect for a 90s Just Say No campaign. As the potion, aka the drug, gets used, the user's tolerance gets higher and the withdrawal comes on sooner and with much greater intensity. And this is the same for Dr. Jekyll's potion. The difference being that Hyde must also take the potion again to return back to Jekyll. It doesn't just wear off.
And now I must ask, have you yet seen The Substance?
Not yet.
I won't say too much, but Darklings out there who have seen The Substance, which just came out recently, there is always a temptation to push the limit when you get a taste of the good things that the potion, the elixir, the substance can do.
Sure.
We've all been there with things like alcohol in our lives, perhaps other substances, but it is definitely the kind of thing where you can very easily tell yourself you only intend to take a little bit or have this experience or what have you.
I'll just have one glass.
And then it can be a slippery slope where you like the effects so much that you start not to care about the consequence.
I've never gotten drunk while recording a podcast episode.
Never.
That's never happened, not even 4 times.
It's tricky. It's really tricky.
Not even 7 or 8 times, really.
And it goes back to what we were told about a lot of different substances growing up, which was, there is no good that can come of this. It's not possible that something good can come of this,
Nothing good ever happens after midnight.
I think really the core of it for me becomes not just self-discipline, but self-knowledge.
Sure.
It's not so much the self-discipline in my world, in my experience, in my mind, in my life. It's more of the self-knowledge. Do you know your limits? Are you willing to respect your limits? How much do you respect yourself? Talking about the hatred of yourself and all these things, something that I've had to develop is that respect for myself over top of years and years and years of hating myself and being told that was the right thing to do. But the self-respect, the self-awareness, I think can save us from a lot of the worst of these temptations and,
of course,
urges.
Not to mention, doing the work, digging deep and trying to figure out why you're relying on these substances in the first place.
Yeah. That's
kind of the key too, that knowledge, that self-awareness of like, why am I doing this?
Right.
Because it's a Band-Aid. It's not ever going to fix the problem.
And once because that's kind of my thing. I don't like to say anything is just inherently evil. Like the binary thinking of this is only bad. No, it can actually be a good thing in the right context and circumstance. I think that's true of a lot of things.
All things in moderation, right?
Yeah.
Of course.
But to me, it all goes back to, do you know your limits? Are you respecting yourself? And newsflash, people's limits and tolerances and just circumstances can change.
Of course.
It's not always going to be the same, even once you figure it out. So that's something that we all have to deal with just as we live and grow and learn and age.
Sure.
It's not going to be static. Nothing is static. Nothing is that static and nothing is that rigid, which is why I have such an issue with the rigidity of society.
Oh, yeah.
Because tying it all back together here, Jekyll wouldn't have felt the need to become Hyde if society had given him a little bit longer leash, had given him a little more slack.
If the expectations of society
weren't so crushing,
yes,
maybe he could just be a whole person that embodies the good qualities of Jekyll and Hyde. Yeah. And maybe a little bit of the bad qualities of each, but perhaps not to the point of murder.
Right, he's pushed to his limit, yeah.
Similarly, the Reverend could continue in his community that supposedly loves him and do the work of a Reverend, which is supposed to be helping people, right? But also loving someone in his life personally.
Right.
Perhaps if society wasn't so focused on a binary, people could enjoy and appreciate their lives that much more, and they wouldn't feel pushed into these double lives and these circumstances that become bad for everyone.
Yeah. It's like backing somebody into a shadow with your own hatred, and they're like scared of you, so they back away, and they're like in this dark corner, and then everybody goes, "Oh, look, a monster in the shadows!
Mm-hmm.
Look in there! It's scary! Look how scary he is!" No, you put him there.
You put him there. It's true. But the thing that gets me is just the way that society, modern society, and even back in Stevenson's day, even back in the 90s, in this episode, society's rigid, binary, and unnatural, like, living life in these corners is what puts people, more often than not, in situations that they shouldn't be in.
Yeah.
And if society were just a little bit more fluid, accepting, gracious, if it left any room for error at all, really, is what I'm getting at. And not even just error, not even just error, but like different ways of thinking, different ways of doing things. Can you tell that I'm a deeply, deeply neurodivergent person living in a society that often feels like it was not built for me in many more ways than one?
Same.
I just think if society didn't put that pressure on people, imagine what we could be. And what we could become without that.
Just imagine.
Just imagine for a second. The love that you could share, the love that you can give, and the excitement and the mystery and all the other things
I've had
that
all these thoughts
humans
this week
need.
too. I'm glad you're saying it because I don't have the words for it. Like all the words I had, I put into the script, and everything else were just feelings I had.
These are things that I've been thinking for many, many years. They're deeply held beliefs that I now have and now value, you know?
I just keep thinking like, how much better of a place would the world be? We'd be so much happier if you just let people be who they are. You know,
that's all it takes. And okay, here we go. Here's our disclaimer for the Darkling kids.
Most people don't want to hurt other people. Like,
I'm not saying that we need a purge. I'm not saying, and see, that's the thing. And I think that's what a lot of religious or certain groups of people, I think that's what they hear when we say, let people be who they are, let people express themselves, let people love who they love. I think what they hear is, well, our basest urges are to kill and maim and destroy.
I guess so.
So if we just let everybody do that, where would we be? And it's like, actually, no.
It's just not
For
true.
the vast majority of humanity, that's just not the case. We just want to like go live in peace with our pigeon friends, you know? It's back to that concept almost exactly.
My friends.
If you let people be who they are, give people the space, the room to be who they are and to grow into who they are. You give them the acceptance, just having acceptance. That I could go on a million soapboxes about how important acceptance is. I'm still there, but
I've been there for a few days.
Acceptance is just so important because if somebody can see and validate you where you are, validate your, like we were saying with Pigeon Man too, validate your art, validate your contribution to society, validate your mind and the way you think.
Yeah.
If more people had that energy and that support, there's just like, there's no telling what society could be.
The human potential.
The human potential. It's staggering to think the potential that we kill.
I just saw recently.
In the name of nothing.
We tend to give rich, privileged, young people some shit for their nepotism and just becoming artists and like becoming the new, line of celebrity we all have to look at. But this meme or whatever it was I was reading,
I know what you're going to
said
say.
Basically, but look at how beautiful it is when you take away all the like pressures of life and all the expectations
when
and
you
everything.
aren't living under the crushing weight of survival and responsibility, capitalism.
Like, most people
choose to make art.
Yeah. As humans, we are artists. We love beauty. We love aestheticism. We love colors and wine, and we love music, and we love drawing. Like, these are the things that humans do, and feeling things. These are the things that humans do when they're just left alone. Most people don't want to hurt other people.
I mean, we've talked about this from the beginning of the podcast. What did the early humans do? They sat around the campfire and told stories.
That's it.
So, no, Karen, the basest urges.
Not you, our listener, Karen. You are beautiful and you're great. We love you.
Karen the Darkling is amazing. Karen the figurehead. Karen the figurehead. We just want to let you know that our basest urges are not to like go killing and maiming and destroying. Our basest urges are mostly to go love and appreciate, enjoy, eat, drink, be merry.
Yeah.
Have relations
I'm
with
with
one
you.
another.
I'm with you. I'm all about it.
And if you question whether those are truly the deepest human urges, think about the fact that both in circumstances of oppression and repression and circumstances of freedom and expression, most people choose art in both circumstances.
Yeah.
Really at the core of it. Obviously, if it's, eat or be eaten, that's another thing. But like,
yeah, totally.
The things that make us feel big make us create, not destroy, unless we're told we have to destroy.
Yeah, right.
By a system that's arbitrary. It doesn't, like, you know what I mean? You know what guys, you know what I'm saying.
We all know what you're saying. If you want any example of this, prime example, we are very busy people. We have, full-time jobs. We have a whole entire lives that take away from all the creative things that we want to do. We do not have the privilege of just sitting around and creating and living in this beautiful artistic, way. We wish desperately we could, but we don't have it. And yet we fight tooth and nail
to do it anyway.
Put out podcast episodes and to write things down and try to tell stories every other week.
Yeah.
We do it
to
desperately.
Hold up other stories to the light as well. You know what I mean? Like, that's just something that we both care so much about, is giving life to stories that other people have told even.
And so we're desperately fighting for the opportunity just to create, as most artists actually do. Most people actually do that. They're just crushed by the expectations of society.
And hey, here we are, kind of to round it out. I want to remind you, each and every Darkling listening out there, you are society. You make up society. There are more of us than there are of them. We get to choose what society is.
They are the 1%. Let's not forget that.
We get to choose what society is because we are society. It's the same belief, growing up in systems of religion. You say the people are the church. If you say we are the church, you have to kind of apply that elsewhere too. If that's something that you've believed in your life or thought of, you're also the community. You're also the society. The things that you do on a micro scale for the people in your life and the people around you ripple outward and affect other people. We talk about this all the time, but I just want to yell it from the rooftops. Like, we're sitting here frustrated with the expectations and pressures of society, and I just want the tides to turn. And there are enough of us to turn them. Don't forget that.
This is a call for revolution.
It is.
Revolution, Kaylin Andrews.
Kaylin
Revolution Andrews.
Kaylin Revolution. KR. Call me KR.
KR.
Kaylin Revolution.
I'm Kaylin's cousin. KR.
Kaylin's cousin Revolution.
The day after Keith first uses the potion, Mariah walks to school with him and tries to get some answers about who it was that left his house yesterday, because she saw him leave as KC.
Speaking of seeing things at his house, I have to ask you a very important question. Does he have a restroom sign on his wall, his bedroom wall?
I don't know.
Because it sure looked like it to me.
Maybe he does.
Perhaps. Just saying.
What do you think it means?
I'm not sure. It It's hard not to look at it through the lens of today and say, is he making some kind of binary statement that then he is hypocritically, going back on? I don't know. I don't think so. Not even going to pretend that that's the case, but it did look an awful lot like a guy, a restroom dude.
Sure.
On his wall next to the door. So I'll let you Darklings be the judge of that one.
Yeah, I can't say. I didn't see it. I don't know. But today, Keith isn't his usual friendly self.
A little warm for that, isn't it?
Oh, I got a cold.
So who was that guy yesterday? He ran from your house. So
What guy?
He was at the charcoal pit, flirting with Shelley. He looks kind of...
It's snowing. It's snowing.
But I'm sure that
Look. Let's just walk to school, okay?
He's rude and dismissive, which is our next indicator that the potion is taking its toll on him. And at school, Shelley spots them and expresses her approval of his cousin KC. And he assures her that KC will be at the diner again that afternoon.
Yeah, he's just rocking and rolling and whatnot. Just hang on 1 second while I slip into my other personality, baby. I'll be right back.
You never told me you had a cousin.
He's not from around here.
Raya is understandably confused, because she's the only one who really sees Keith. So she already knows that something weird is going on, and this makes her the Mr. Utterson of our Tale of the Dark Dragon.
It does, doesn't it?
Snooping into the situation and stopping at nothing to uncover the truth.
With her own motives, as it were.
The next disfigurement that Keith notices is an odd growth of hair on the back of his hand, which he covers with a black glove, very Michael Jackson of him. And he throws the bottle of potion in the trash. But then Shelley calls to invite Casey over to watch TV. And after a moment of reconsidering using the potion, he accepts.
And then he's like, hey, hang on a second, baby. Let me slip into my other personality real quick.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's more of an immediate happening.
In another very swift passing of time, we catch the two of them after their night together. Casey asks her to the dance, and even though she's already dating Gary, she says yes. And they proceed to kiss.
They're just doing it like they did in the 50s. You just go to the sock hop with whomever asks you. It's not like a thing. You might not be going steady.
But they're like making out.
You can make out with somebody and not be going steady.
But she has a boyfriend.
We don't know that he's her boyfriend. It's not expressly said.
I guess, but it's high school. I mean, you like hold hands and you're already boyfriend, girlfriend.
I guess it depends. It just depends.
I guess so. But do you ever remember like doing that in high school? Like being invited over just to watch TV?
Oh, yeah.
With like
for sure.
Your crush and their family.
For sure.
Like their parents are sitting on the same couch or like in the room with you, and you're just like, yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah. I was very lucky in that my parents mostly let me have my people over to our house, and we had like a separate like room. Like it was our school room because we were homeschooled, but there was a TV in there, so we got to like use that TV. Like we weren't in my bedroom alone, at least, but we were able to watch our own stuff.
Well, I always feel like, it was the girls' families that had the boys over, because then they could like keep a watchful eye.
Right.
Whereas if you send your daughter off to some boy's house, you don't know what's going on over there. So you kind of like, just come to our house.
All my friends were always at my house, which was super fun.
It just reminded me very much of like Gilmore Girls when they have Dean over to watch
TV. They have Dean over to watch Willy Wonka.
Yeah. Yeah, they watch movies and stuff.
They watch Willy Wonka.
In the following morning, Keith's appearance has taken another turn for the worse, the much, much worse. The body hair has spread to his neck, and his teeth are sharp and jagged, and he has deep, dark circles around his eyes. So he skipped school. I think I would too.
I think I can see that shot in the mirror sticking with people. It's pretty like harrowing, you know?
Totally.
He's scary looking in that shot.
Because so far you've just wondered what the little splotchy, skin and the hair
Yeah, this
meant.
is the reveal of the monster that he's become.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, he is turning into something else. Yeah.
I would have become the man just begun.
Instead of going to school,
ripping off 3 days grace.
He goes to Mr. Sardo's, who finally admits that Keith is the only one who's ever bought the stuff.
Oh, and I'm telling you that like sent a chill down my spine. I know that it's like the predictable outcome. It's the next punchline in the Sardo soiree. Like we know that it's coming. Yeah. But like still, as a person who has had to take a lot of medications recently and just had to read a lot of information about side effects, and somebody that's been like hyper vigilant about reacting to all kinds of stuff, for the person who sold you the potion that's supposed to be vetted and safe and gonna make you this person that you want to be, to then just openly admit to you, actually you're basically the test bunny, you're the Gremlin yourself, my friend. Like no one else.
The grab. No. I that's probably a thing, but I think there could be a pretty good body horror movie about someone who finds out they are the test subject for a new medication, and the side effects have this kind of monstrous
Eustace.
Yeah.
They kind of did it on Courage. We've talked about it
this on,
just now.
You know, in 90s TV before, but it is kind of funny how common this was. That like,
yeah, it's a reveal that I saw coming, but it still chilled me because
it's scary stuff.
The idea that you are flying blind with your life,
I do not like it.
With your very life,
do not like it, Sam. I am
is real scary.
Well, Keith and Mr. Sardo check the spell book together, and Keith spots the mention of a warning that can be found on the next page.
And I continue to cringe because of the experiences that I've had in the American healthcare system. Turn the page, friend. What does it say over there?
Caution, turn page.
Caution, turn page. Not only should that be your logical next step when reading, say reading one page, to then turn the page to the following page.
Yes.
But it tells them.
Turn page.
It tells the reader, turn page. So even if it wasn't going to be your instinct.
Caution.
They give it to you right there, and you still can't be bothered to read it.
Yep. I bet there was a big old arrow too.
Oh, don't even get me started on literacy rates in America.
Oh my Lord.
Abysmal.
And because of Sardo's ignorance, Keith's symptoms worsen throughout the day, and he skulks home in a black hoodie to conceal his grotesque appearance. Mariah, ever the snooping Utterson, uses the key he keeps under the loose board to sneak into his house and check.
Because she knows that he keeps a key under the loose board.
She does know.
Is she that close a friend? Or just that observant?
Or is she a creep? No, I think she's
a creep.
I think she's actually just that observant.
She's a weirdo. Yeah, no, I agree.
You know, she's just home watering her plants. She's wholesome.
Glancing over, stealing glances at her crush's door.
And hoping he comes and goes and she can wave to him. You know,
I get it.
But she also knows that something is very, very wrong. But he won't let her into his room because he is now fully transformed into a hideous-looking beast.
Let me help you.
No one can help me now.
Let me try.
Just go away. Just go.
And that's where you insert a gif of Jim and Dwight. When Dwight says, he's on a path now. When he's, you know, the bat, the rabies, the vampires, etc., etc.
Good night, Dwight.
Pulls up his collar. And Dwight says, he's on a path now.
Oh man, it's time to rewatch The Office. It's been a while.
I am never not.
So to kind of compare these two potions, when Keith takes it, he becomes KC. And then once the effects wear off, he's Keith again. Only he's devolving into some beast, right?
Mm-hmm.
The difference with Jekyll's potion is that Hyde must also take the potion again to return back to Jekyll. But whereas Jekyll begins slipping into Hyde without the aid of the potion and must fight harder and harder for his returns back to Jekyll, Keith's sober form begins to take on a ghastly appearance.
Yeah.
Which is clearly the physical manifestation of his own self-loathing.
Mm-hmm.
And this has everything to do with the warning that accompanies Sardo's potion in his spellbook. Caution, before bringing out the best, one must fight the dark dragon from within.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the caveat here should be, beware, once you pop, you can't stop. Or else you'll turn into a hairy, scaly creature.
Can't have just one.
For those who don't know, the description of Edward Hyde's appearance is very similar to primitive man. He's described as physically dwarfish with excessive body hair and caveman-like facial features. He's small in stature, but strong and aggressive and violent, and everyone who encounters him is mysteriously repulsed by him, although they can never put into words why. So this is why Keith can't simply return back to his original self once the effects of the potion wear off. He must be disfigured in some way. And this is because the motif here is that there must always be a physical transformation toward monstrosity of some kind, not to mention the necessity for narrative devices such as high stakes and consequences. And that's why Keith says that no one can help him, because this is the threat of permanence. He has no reason to believe that this will ever go away. As far as he knows, this is a super botched,
Yeah, I mean, it didn't go away for the bunny that we know of.
Right, that we know of, right? And I mean, Sardo doesn't exactly know what he's doing anyway, so...
No, I wouldn't have a whole lot of faith if my faith needed to be in Sardo.
I would believe that this was permanent, that this was done, that I was going to be this weird, leathery, hairy
I
creature
assume that
for the
every
rest of
time
my
I
life.
have an ailment of any kind, that it's permanent.
Right.
I've only been right a couple times, but damn, it sucks when I am.
This is it. All right,
This is what
the
gets
decline.
me. I think that way often.
And, that's kind of the point of the story with Jekyll and Hyde, is it becomes harder for Jekyll to return to his natural self because he's overcome with his temptations.
And
right?
imagine...
He's so involved.
Imagine if we'd just let him integrate his Jekyll and Hyde together to begin with so that no extreme end of the spectrum need be approached.
He's overcome by it.
Imagine.
He's overwhelmed by it. And that's ultimately what leads to his death at the end of the story. Because consuming both of these potions sets off a wild chain of events that will get increasingly worse before they ever get better. And in Stevenson's tale, they never do. It alters the user's fate, and it forces them to take responsibility for their actions, or else come to a permanently horrible end.
I know all y'all are yelling at Christian that he should have watched The Substance.
I'm going to watch it. I've had no time. So Michael Scott, no time. But really though, I'm about to move. When I set up my new living area with my TV and my surround sound system, I'm excited.
And you're going to be thinking,
it's going to be
damn,
awesome.
I could have said this. Damn, I could have said that.
I should have watched this before we recorded that episode weeks ago.
Nah, we wouldn't spoil it for y'all anyway.
Of course not. So, later that night, Mariah spots Keith stealing out into the darkness, wearing his black clothes and shuffling along with his injured leg. And I don't know why he waited until he got to the school to take the potion.
That is the next thing I was about to open my mouth and say. Why did he need to take this dose at school? It was mostly so our friend could see him transform, I know.
Well, I was going to say it's so we can get that shot, that Mr. Hyde shot of him, shuffling off into the night, though. But she also has to follow him to the school, right?
Right. And all of this is ironic because Keith is taking the potion to become KC and get away from the limp.
I don't know.
He's trying to get away from the limp, and yet the potion's causing it.
She has to follow him
even worse
there.
Than Keith had it to begin with, which is also probably metaphorical.
Potion has to be in the locker.
And the potion has to be in the locker so that Mariah can take it. He couldn't leave it at home because then Mariah couldn't have any.
Right.
We see what you're doing, DJ. We see it.
But I still think it could have worked just as well if she'd broken into his house to go snoop around his bedroom and found it.
I agree, but then she wouldn't have been as immediately at the school and able to pay him a visit on the dance floor.
And his dad's probably home.
True. Forgot about his dad.
Yeah.
Like you do.
It's pretty irrelevant.
Except for in this moment when he's the reason that the potion needed to be in the locker
yes,
from Mariah.
Yes. I knew I should have talked about his dad. What was I thinking? But yes, Keith gets to the school, takes the potion once more, and he transforms into KC. He sheds his civilian clothes for his suit.
Civilians can wear suits.
He sheds his concealing clothes to reveal his suit.
I'm just really impressed that that stumped you.
His dancing suit.
His dancing suit, yes.
Yes. Because tonight is the night of the homecoming dance. And while cool KC is off dancing with shallow Shelley, Mariah is breaking into Keith's locker. She saw him put the bottle of potion away. So she has a hunch that this peculiar bottle is the key to unlocking the mystery of Keith's strange behavior.
Side note on this, maybe I missed it because obviously we saw her take the key from under the board. Was his locker key under there too? Or like she knows the combination?
I think
she's just getting all up in his business.
No, it wasn't locked.
He just left it unlocked? How dangerous.
He left the lock.
Okay.
He was at a dance.
Okay. All right. No, I understand that, but I'm saying how dangerous because he left the potion in an unlocked locker for any old someone to walk up on it.
Any old so-and-so.
Any old high school kid could have been taking that potion. And we all know there are a bunch of high school kids who would probably want to, given the chance. They just didn't know what they had.
They didn't know what it was doing, though.
Mariah did.
Mariah knew.
Mariah
Carey.
Mariah. She becomes Mariah Scary here pretty shortly.
Hey, Mariah carries the plot. And much to everyone's sense of impending doom, Mariah downs the potion. The whole thing. The entire bottle.
The whole thing. What a choice.
Come what may.
If I'm Mariah, though, I will say, okay, she saw him transform into KC. Amazing. She's also seeing the downside. Not like face to face. She's not getting the full picture, but she can tell that something's wrong with Keith.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, she's a teenage girl. She's a teenager, not fully with it, but like, if I were Mariah, I would put two and two together and say, okay, the good thing came from the potion, but the bad thing probably did too.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's just very impulsive of her.
I don't know that I would grab and down a bottle, but again, these are teenagers. Maybe, again, another metaphor for the use of substances at a school dance.
Hey, I think you're not wrong about that. In this dance, I mean, instead of naming a homecoming king and queen, this school chooses to name the best athlete in school. Like that's some kind of objective truth. But our boy Gary is named
MVP.
The best athlete
basically
in school. Yeah. And he uses his time in the limelight to dedicate his award to Shelley.
I mean.
And to ask her to dance next dance with him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it
Grand
stabs,
gesture.
like it stabs Keith in the heart.
I mean,
like accepting the dance.
What are you going to do? Save a dance for me. Like, dances are not exclusive to the person that you arrived at the dance with.
No, I know. He's all dejected, though. And I do kind of just keep wondering what Gary's date is thinking during all this, because she's there with Gary, and he's like, I'm in love with you, Shelley.
Well, knowing high school, she's probably there with Gary to make somebody else jealous.
That's true.
And as soon as he says that, you know, she's like, okay, I can now go dance with my crush.
Back to what we were saying earlier. If the societal expectations would just get off our backs, we could all just dance with who we want to dance with and not have to try to just dance. Everybody at this dance is dancing with somebody else to make somebody else jealous. Everybody.
Just dance with who you want to dance with. We understand you want to dance with somebody. It can be the person that you want. It can happen, guys. It's a possible outcome in this life.
You heard that, incels?
Yeah, well, don't know if you guys are going to get the ones you want, but most of us can have happy endings in this world if we just get out of our own way a little bit.
Get out of your own way.
And if we avoid these caustic cocktails.
Caustic cocktails, there it is. Finally, somebody said it.
Finally.
But yes, heartbroken that Shelley would choose her boyfriend over him. Casey walks away, despondent.
My friend's over you.
Only to spot a transformed Mariah entering the dance floor in a white prom dress. Where'd that come from?
I mean, KC got his duds from the potion, so...
I guess that's true.
Stands to reason.
He doesn't recognize her at first because her hair is fixed. She's wearing makeup, and she's not wearing glasses.
I was about to say, you're forgetting the most important ingredient of her transformation, which is simply the fact that this already gorgeous girl took off her gosh darn glasses.
Pretty typical fare for a 90s situation just as this.
All you gotta do if you're a nerdy girl in the 90s is just take off those bad boys, and whether or not you can see doesn't matter because you look great. Guess what, guys? Glasses can be attractive on men, on women, on non-binary friends.
Look no further.
Look no further than your ghost host.
Christian Glasses Mott.
Glasses don't make people ugly. I've been wanting to scream this since I was but a wee child, watching all of these transformation, not just movies, but sitcom episodes.
Well,
it's Boy Meets World does
when
it.
I got glasses in 3rd grade, I was made fun of.
Yeah, 4 Eyes.
Very badly.
Why?
It really
Why?
killed my self-esteem and effectively turned me into a friendless, little, weird, nerdy kid.
That's your origin story.
Part of it, yeah. Yep.
That's your Hyde moment. You run and hide, then it turns you into Hyde.
Guess so.
It makes you hate yourself and
I guess so.
subdue your impulses until it's too late.
Repressing my impulse to be cool.
I'm grasping at straws here, but my point, ladies, theys, thems, gentlemen's, is this is a tired narrative. And girls can be pretty, both with glasses and without. And simply removing the glasses on an already gorgeous girl isn't the transformation that they thought it was in the 90s.
That's very true. I think that's true for this trope.
Mia Thermopolis.
But I'm going to argue
Anne
that
Hathaway is beautiful.
I'm going to argue that that's not what's happening in this episode. I want to point out that this isn't your standard 90s nerdy girl gets hot situation.
How not? How not?
Those are rife with shallow, misogynistic propaganda that deems to classify beauty standards and insists that women should focus on nothing but looks and never be content with themselves.
I agree so far.
This version, DJ's pretty dark version, is doing the exact opposite.
She was already pretty and didn't need the potion?
She was. She looks the exact same.
Bingo.
But first of all, it's authentic. Because every teenager wants to be more popular, more attractive. This isn't even so much a case of be careful what you wish for. It's more than that. It's showing that not only should you love yourself for who you already are, but you should find people who also love you just the way that you are.
Amen.
And like Mariah says, in the most heartbreaking way.
Isn't it wonderful? Now you can fall in love with me.
Now you can fall in love with me. If you want a pretty girl like Shelley, I will be a pretty girl.
Yeah. See, that's what made me so upset.
Me too. This is the moment that I felt the most fear in this episode. This line of dialogue filled me with more dread and concern than this whole kid taking the potion that turns him into a monster thing. This
Me too.
frightened me.
Me too.
That's the point. We know this is DJ's true intent. Because Mariah's transformation is meant to represent horrifying circumstances. We know you're only supposed to take one drop at a time. She took the whole thing. And if just the one drop dosage made Keith so hideous, what is this going to do to her?
Oh, yeah.
And the biggest kicker of all, like we've said, is that she looks the exact same, just without her glasses. And the reason the glasses are gone is because
her eyesight is restored.
It purifies any imperfections, right? It heals Keith's leg. It heals her eyesight. Keith looks the same too, except his hair is combed. That's kind of the point. That's kind of the joke behind the potion, is that it doesn't change.
You don't
these
need the
people at all.
potion. Yeah. Other than their healing, it doesn't change them, who they are.
These are not major transformations for the better. The only real transformation that takes place is for the worse. But this only happens when you use the potion for shallow, selfish purposes.
Yeah.
It cleans you up and it boosts your confidence. But what you do with that outlook on life is up to you. You know, if you seek out your own vain pursuits and further your own agenda, i.e. getting the girl, you aren't actually using the potion to better yourself. You're relying on the magic to do that for you. And this only leads to more self-hatred once the potion's effects wear off, which is what brings on the physical manifestations of that self-abasement, aka the symptoms of disfigurement.
Yeah.
The more you hate yourself, the more monstrous you're going to appear.
Our wheels are turning now.
Yeah,
They're
buddy.
Turning.
That's
because,
why it's different from your normal,
Point
nerdy girl
proven.
gets hot situation.
I think that there are elements of nerdy girl gets hot. TV trope.
I think he's
but
using
I think he's
the trope.
I think he's using it
to make
a bigger point.
Yes.
I think also it's interesting, the idea that this potion is supposed to bring you the confidence, bring you all these things. It just kind of puts you in the position to be confident. It doesn't necessarily bring it on. That confidence was already in Keith. The KC is already inside you.
Right. Right.
And
That's
you can
also the
kind of
point of the
see
Jekyll and
this.
Hyde thing is that it's already
It's
there.
already there. It's already
You have
inside
all
you.
of it.
You have
It's not
it.
that
You
it's
have all the
giving you
elements.
something you don't have.
Right.
It's just already there. It's
Right.
just bringing that to the front.
Getting you out of your own way.
Yes, get out of your own way. Get out of your
But
head.
in the case of Mariah and this very, very heartbreaking line that she delivers about, I can be the pretty girl. If you want the pretty girl, I can be that for you.
It just breaks me up.
She's not being confident. She's still herself.
She's doing it for
under
the wrong
this.
reasons.
She hates herself. She thinks she's not the pretty girl, and she's saying, I can become something else for you, instead of saying, I'll be who I am.
And that's good enough.
And you'll think that I'm pretty.
Right.
Which is what's happening.
Yeah.
She is who she is. She has everything she had before. She is the same person. And he thinks she's pretty now. But she's still stuck mentally in that idea that she's not good enough, that she's not worthy.
It almost makes it worse for her in a way, because she's also confident enough to say that thing out loud too. It's giving her the wrong kind of gusto.
I guess so.
She's professing her love, but it's this warped, like almost.
It's desperate.
It's mentally unwell.
There's a desperation.
There's a desperation there that shouldn't be there. It's
and
because she took too much.
Okay, a desperation there that shouldn't be there, maybe because she took too much, but that is like a seed of an idea that's in the minds of a lot of teenage girls.
Every single one.
It's this idea that they're not enough.
Boys too. They just don't talk about it as much.
Yeah. And so in a way, there is value in saying it out loud, because you can't, face the monster unless you name it.
Yeah.
And I think it does kind of horrify Keith a little bit, because it makes him realize, even if not his intention in the whole circumstance with her and Shelley and everything else, it makes him realize that her perception of the situation is that the reason he doesn't like her is because she's not a pretty girl.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, just maybe, in that moment, he also realizes he was being shallow, and that was kind of his MO. Like, that kind of was where he was going when he didn't look in front of him at the person who cares about him and knows where he keeps his house key.
Hey, okay, we're getting there. We're almost there. We're almost there. So, okay, all of this here, this is why once Shelley promises to be a pretty girl for Keith, she begins to feel the pangs of her overdose, because that's the final form of her, the manifestation of the effects of the potion of her, her own selfish desires here.
Yep. She summed it up in a sentence. My selfish desire, her dark dragon.
Her dark dragon
is that she believes
that was the face. Yeah, exactly.
That she's not a pretty girl, but she'll be one. And not only that, but I'll be one for you.
Right. Yes.
And that is so many of our dark dragons.
It's not the point of the potion, guys. It's not the point.
But we didn't know that because Sardo didn't read the damn page.
Fucking Sardo. Skip town. So Keith helps her out into the school hallway, and they talk on the stairs.
I drank the whole bottle.
No. Why did you do it?
I did it for you. You wanted a beautiful girl.
That's how much she thought of Keith, if not how much she hated herself. She thought she would need the entire bottle to be good enough for Keith.
Again, because that's just where a lot of us...
That's where we go. Our self, the self.
Yeah, like doubt. That's where a lot of us go. We go to that place of self-doubt and we think, oh, I'm not worthy of this. I could never be worthy of this. Like, it's a complicated game.
It sure is. And Mariah begins to disfigure, growing the same monstrous teeth and breaking out in those familiar splotches of what look like hairy warts, kind of. And Keith explains that he never thought Mariah should change. He just wanted to change himself because he was tired of having a bum leg and being stared at all the time. He just wanted to be normal. He hated himself. But Mariah did not hate him. So like everything you were just saying about how he begins to realize what's happened because of his own selfish motives, his own selfish actions.
Yeah.
And he begins to cry over her as she begins to fade away. And I mean literally dying from her overdose of this potion. And I have to say it, that's pretty dark.
there's a lot to consider here because we all have our dark dragons. We all have our insecurities. We all have our things we wish we could change about ourselves. And we all wish there was an easy button to do that. I was watching and thinking, if there was a potion that I could take that would magically cure me of all of my health issues and all the things that I'm dealing with that I feel are a burden on my life and the lives of others that I care about, I would probably take it. I would probably take it in a heartbeat. I don't know that I would take the whole bottle. And I would also probably look for some like peer-reviewed studies and, other, reasons why this was a good idea. But it's hard to slay that dragon. It's really hard to do.
It is.
Most people are on a journey doing that for their whole lives.
Yeah. This potion really forces you to do the work. It's like, do the work or else.
It makes you kind of wake up to your own self-betrayal. Like it's not even so much, oh, I was too selfish. I was only thinking of myself. It's not like necessarily that. It's like how you were betraying yourself, how you weren't seeing yourself clearly.
Yeah.
That's what the dark dragon really is.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But there's a reason why Mariah has to overdose. And this is a spoiler for those who have never read Stevenson's novella. It's only been 150 years?
It's been out there for a minute.
Better get on it. This is because the story ends with Hyde committing suicide by way of probably an arsenic overdose. Kind of unclear. But when it comes to the Jekyll and Hyde motif, there is almost always a death, or at least the suggestion of death, by some chemical means.
And he's not going to even get her help or try to. He just holds her and says...
Not going to call for help or nothing.
Really dry. Please don't go.
Yep. Just crying over her. Just crying those tears of a phoenix onto her shoulder. Because it would appear that Keith's newfound affections for her have cured them both. It took her dying for him to realize that he had feelings for her. It's almost Shakespearean in a way.
Keith? What happened?
I think I beat the dark dragon.
So Mariah is not only alive, but her disfigurement has reversed itself. Both of them appear to have retained their, cleaned up looks, their perfect hair and all, without fear of any reversal or consequences. Because the purpose of the potion has been fulfilled. They've both found their inner peace, their own acceptance of self, which really is a teenage example of self-actualization.
Yes.
In a way.
That's what we've been getting at. Now
their outward appearance reflects the beauty within. Keith realizes he never needed to hate himself because Mariah already loved him. And I don't even know if that's a great thing either, but the reason he never noticed her before isn't because she wasn't already beautiful, but because he couldn't see past his own self-hatred long enough to realize the beauty that already lived inside of her.
He didn't think he was worthy of anyone, so perhaps he kind of self-sabotaged by pursuing someone that he knew was, quoting, out of his league, or, because he knew there was a low stakes, sort of...
I think that makes a lot of sense. I was thinking that.
He already knew he'd get rejected by her, so...
That was kind of the point.
It didn't make anything worse.
Yeah, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way.
Yeah.
And the story ends with Keith taking Mariah to the dance. And the episode ends with another round of happy birthdays for Gary. And I'm not rushing the ending at all. That's literally just how quickly it wraps up and ends and it's over.
I was a little unclear on the way that his dark dragon controls how the potion affects other people too.
Her. Yeah.
Because she didn't exactly conquer her dragon.
No, I wrote a bunch of stuff out when I was doing the script about how I could make that work logically. But I really just think it's something we're not supposed to think about.
Probably. Yeah. I think it's his potion and therefore his...
I scrapped all of it because I couldn't make it work.
Yeah.
I tried and I couldn't.
Because we don't have to let the girls self-actualize.
She did her job. She almost died.
Yeah, she acted as his, manic pixie potion girl. I didn't need to give her dark
Allison
dragon
Benjamin, what's that
moment.
about? Explain yourself.
I'm sure it was a timing thing. I'm sure they just didn't have time for it.
There just was no time.
I don't know. It just caught me off guard a little bit because I was like, but wait a second.
I think
what about
the approach I took with it was their little conversation right there as she was fading away, something in that moment with them talking.
She realized as they were talking that she was wrong for
that she was wrong to do
feeling
what
that
she
way.
did.
It was just a look in their eyes, their chemistry and their love.
Yeah, it was this
And
misunderstanding.
she knew that he really did care about her.
Something
it was
in
all
that
self-sabotage, and she was like,
Yeah.
oh, well, then I am worthy. And then she felt worthy, and that's what brought her back to life or something.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. Happy birthday, Gary.
Happy birthday, Gary.
Happy
You got a
birthday.
story. And
there was
a
no
character-
further Midnight Society commentary either. They just were
There's
like,
a character named after you, Gary. I used Sardo.
accent on the dough.
No, mister. Happy birthday, Gary. I don't know. See, it wraps up pretty fast. All we know is that the magic corrected itself. Maybe it's like the vampire lore. When you kill the head vampire that turned all the other people, you kill that vampire and the curse is
Cut
over.
the head off of this.
You cut the head off.
Thing. The Vecna.
Yeah.
Okay.
Vecna.
All right.
Maybe because he caused her to overdose on it with his own selfishness.
I'll buy it.
Well, it's pretty obvious. There are a few things I would do differently with this episode today. But all in all, I really enjoy this 90s teenage approach that they took with such a classic of Gothic literature. This is another episode that I really wish DJ could have made into a feature of some kind. It worked for what it was, but there's a lot of truth here that I really wish he could have expounded on and really driven home the themes more if he'd had more time.
I mean, I would take like a whole DJ McHale limited series of just 90s teen takes on classic literature. Just do elevate it, modernize it, but then set it in the 90s, make it a period thing.
Give him a full hour.
And name the tales as the literary counterparts.
That'd be great.
And just see what other themes and what else he could unearth.
Yeah, 90s nostalgia, but classic.
Which
literature.
is already Are You Afraid of the Dark, we recognize. But we're saying give him a budget and let it happen
Give
now.
him an actual budget in a full
Give him
hour.
that Marvelous Mrs. Maisel budget.
Ooh, man, what he couldn't do with that. What he couldn't do. But, obviously, if it didn't have the intended effect, we wouldn't still be talking about this on a podcast 30 years later.
Amen. You're right.
He did okay with what he had.
He did.
So bravo, Allison Benjamin. Well done, DJ.
Thank you both.
Before we get to my final thoughts, I think it's time for that Scareometer!
Scareometer time!
Woo, it's been a while.
Ding, ding, ding. We haven't done a
Been a
Scareometer in a minute. We haven't done an Are You Afraid of the Dark in a minute.
It's true. I'm going to keep it short and simple. Short and sweet. All the stuff we're saying, all the teenage fear of not being popular or attractive or whatever, but also just the whole not being good enough and not feeling worthy. And self-hatred is very real, and it is a dark dragon that I battle on a daily basis. So I gave this a 6 out of 10.
I gave it a 6 as well for the same reason, because that cuts down to a very core part of our humanness and our humanity and our human selves that we will always be battling against.
Absolutely.
And it can get pretty dark when we do. Not so much for the visuals or the the other elements that usually go into a Scareometer rating. This was purely the psychological.
Yeah, I'm sure that stuff scared me when I was a kid, or at least gave me pause or something. But like I said, as an adult, the scariest part for me was Mariah's manic episode at the end, where she just was not herself.
Yeah.
It was like this personification of everything that's wrong with, I don't know, teenage expectation, societal expectation of I'm finally here. I did it.
Yeah.
And it kills you.
I like that Are You Afraid of the Dark lives in this space where it's childhood and teenagehood and all of that coming of age, all that stuff that all of us feel. And also now being able to look back at that stuff and realize just how far we had to come, how far we needed to develop, and the conclusions that we reached when we thought we knew everything as teenagers, and how they weren't so sound after all.
Right.
There's value in recognizing that we've grown from those places.
Absolutely.
Even if these are still things that we struggle with as adults.
You said it. I personally always thought of Jekyll and Hyde as an allegory for some kind of substance misuse. Probably drugs, but definitely alcohol. The way it can change a person and cause them to act on impulses they might not otherwise act on, and how it's the individual's responsibility to conquer those impulses and make much wiser choices in the future. Plus, the more often you give in to such temptations, the harder it is to deny them. Mm-hmm. And this is a lot of the stuff that we've already said. You've basically said this already. And maybe this story is an allegory for addiction or dependency. Maybe that's why he, his wife, and his son all denied that his feverish writing of the second draft was drug-fueled, because it might taint the allegory and the moral at hand. But now, with some research and a little more enlightenment into his inspirations, I think there's a lot more to the allegory of such a story than just substance abuse.
Agreed. I think it's an element. I think it's part of the puzzle, but it is not the whole point by any means.
It can kind of be whatever you want it to be or whatever you need it to be. But my takeaway from all of this is twofold. A Jekyll and Hyde of a conclusion. The first is this, that there are people in this world like William Brodie and Eugene Chantrell, respected, privileged monsters, who think they deserve the right to take whatever they want from other people without consequence. Mm-hmm. They think they're better than the rest of us, and are therefore above the law, above morality and reproach. They think they can do whatever they want and get away with it, because the world so often lets them get away with it. That is the Hyde. The second, the Jekyll, is that there are people in this world like Reverend Walter Jekyll, who make no such claims of self-righteousness. They do their best to contribute to society until they are rejected by it. Mm-hmm. They're unaccepted and demonized and forced to pretend to be one sort of person in public just so they can survive day to day.
Right.
And if their secret private lives are ever discovered, no matter how quiet or harmless or wholesome, they are deemed dangerous and villainous and heinous and abhorrent and disgusting and vile and villainous and violent and monstrous, just for something as simple as loving someone of the same sex, or for worshiping God in a different way, or for being from a different country, or just not having the same parts as other people.
Or studying science, or any number of things that scare
science or magic even.
Portions of society.
These second types of people often have to hide in fear from the first types of people.
Yes.
The Jekylls often have to hide
from the Hydes. Nice.
Not as bad a pun as Stevenson's pun of, if he be Mr. Hyde, I be Mr. Seek. Most of us are going to fall somewhere in the middle of these two types of people. I certainly do. And if that's you too, then please remember that just because you have nothing to hide doesn't mean that you're any closer to those privileged few. Do not be mistaken. Those first types of people, the Hydes, do not give a fuck about you. They don't care about you. They just need your vote and your support.
There you go.
Or at the very least, they need for you to turn a blind eye and do absolutely nothing while they seek out and attempt to eliminate those other types of people.
Yes.
The Jekylls. Mm-hmm. So on that cheery note,
yowza.
I have a lot of packing to do.
God. Ouch. I'm hurting. I'm in my feels deep about that paradox that we have going on.
I second guessed all of that. I almost scrapped it, but I said, we've already talked about it this much. We've gotten this far into trouble.
Into trouble.
The country and our political leaders.
No,
so I just said to hell with it.
I think
let's lean in.
I think we have to lean in. I think it's important to lean in. I think the whole thing goes back to what we were saying earlier about being able to live in a society where we don't seek the Jekylls.
We live in a society.
And we don't let the Hydes win. And, just we allow for the duality. We allow for the complexity and the nuance. I scream this, preach it from the rooftops all the time. But just imagine that we actually lived in a world where authenticity isn't the asking price for acceptance, but is instead a tool to find it.
Hey, that's good.
Just let it be that. find your people, respect and support your people, and let other people be themselves.
That's good. It's a mix. It's a whole mixed up, swirly twirly metaphor. The whole thing, Jekyll and Hyde. I said it from the top. It is a messy thing. And the price of all this is messy. There's nothing about this that comes out clean.
No.
And yeah, there are a lot of different metaphors, and so that's what made it so hard to talk about at times, because it was like, you could lean into something like those who fear the Jekyll. Like if you were just to leave the Jekyll alone, there would never be a Hyde in the first place.
Right.
But we're so afraid of the Hyde. But then there's the whole point where the people who are so afraid of the Jekyll that Jekyll becomes Hyde are already Hydes themselves. They just pretend to be the Jekyll to fool everyone. And so it's like, really, it's the same.
It's the same. Two sides of the same coin.
Look at these. Corporate needs you to look at these two photos and find the differences
picture.
between these two. It's the same picture. It's the same thing.
I'm being reminded of like our Balto conversations about narcissism and steel, and how there are these covert ways of being the thing that you claim to hate.
Right, because he fools everyone.
I don't know. There are lots and lots and lots of applications, and we hope that you, dear Darklings, have enjoyed the ride and the journey. And we hope that
what a messy,
your Jekylls are Jekylin
episode.
and your Hydes are only hiding to the extent that they have to. And
Jesus.
We hope.
It took us this long to get to the puns. Are you serious?
Yeah, I saved them all for this moment here. But what we do need to do before we let Christian get to his packing is to thank some of our patrons
who thought we deserved their money. Joke's on you.
These lovely Darklings have upgraded to patron status. We have Victoria S.
and Emily K.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you very much for being here with us on Patreon. If you too are listening and you're like, hey, I wish they would shout me out, I wish that I could hear my name on my favorite podcast, That's Pretty Dark, you can join their ranks at patreon.com/TPD podcast.
That's right.
You can also spend $0 and support us by following us on social media and sharing our content and talking about our content with your friends who are just as traumatized by our dark 90s upbringing as you are. You can find us on socials at That's Pretty Dark Podcast on Instagram, at That's Pretty Dark on TikTok. Again, for now.
I thought it was banned. Still there?
Still alive. You can still use it.
I don't know how it works.
It's a complicated.
Yeah, it's a complicated time.
It's just complicated. It's messy.
Almost like it's messy, and it's like nothing makes sense at the highest point in our country. It's like
nothing.
The whole thing is messy. Muddy waters.
Very scary. Very, very, very scary, the times that we're living in, but we're thankful that you're here living them with us.
You know, there's a surplus of fire and ash in California. There's a surplus of ice and snow in the southeast. There's a surplus of bullshit in Washington.
God.
Can you believe it? Just everywhere. Just falling from the skies.
Everywhere.
Flowing down the streets. Oozing out of the windows of buildings. And out the front doors.
Yikes.
Yeah.
And on that note, if you want to rant with us, if you want to rant at us, if you want to rant without us, you can reach out to us at that'sprettydarkpodcast@gmail.com.
We'd love your emails.
We would.
We'd love your input,
we
your
always
insight.
do. And it's time that we stick together more than ever.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
Wish me luck with the moving.
Thank you to Christian's lovely home.
Yes. Thank you for your contribution.
For all the darkness it has contained.
This wonderful, delightful house. My wood-paneled office. It's been real. It's been good. It's been real good. Man, oh man.
We'll see you soon.
We'll be doing this again next time in my new house. We'll see you guys then.
Some more Are You Afraid of the Dark, actually.
Well, until next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye. That's Pretty Dark Podcast is produced by Kaylin Andrews and me, Christian Baxter Mott.
With music by Jonathan Simmons and cover design by Halftone Horror.
You can support our show by supporting our sponsors, or go to patreon.com/TPD podcast to unlock all the Pretty Dark bonus content we have in store.
Please share your experiences and let us know what shows, films, or villains still haunt you from childhood on our socials or at that'sprettydarkpodcast@gmail.com.
For all other information, visit our website, that'sprettydark.com.
Remember, you're never really alone.
So, until next time, sweet dreams, everyone.
I can't be normal. People stare at me. I hate myself.